Hi guys, it's the 10th of August 2014 and I know the video that I put up is not everybody's cup of tea, the secrets of the universe and numerology and things like that. But, you know, I've got to say this, if I just talk freely for a minute, I've got to say this, it's not looking good, is it? And before we get into NATO and Russia discussion and what's going on there and how things are progressing, I just wanted to say that, you know, while I was away on holiday for the last week in Somerset, Bream, there was a flash flood that took place, and it flooded several shops to a depth of about 6 inches within about the space of half hour. And I was there to witness it. I remember thinking to myself, because we'd just come out of Morrison's, which is on, I believe, Beach Road or something like that, or New Road. Anyhow, it's the one that the road runs alongside the beach there. And we was in Morrison's, and whilst we was in there, you know, it started to rain a little bit while we was in there. But when we come out, it was absolutely horrendous, to the fact that, you know, within the space of half hour it had flooded you know, the doorway of Morrison's by about 6 inches. I've never seen rain like it. We just, prior to this, 3 weeks before that, we was in Nuneaton, around the Coventry area in the UK. We was in the city centre, and we'd just left, and we didn't realise it, that when we got back, Nuneaton had flooded in the same manner within the space of about half hour, but this time the shops had flooded to a depth of around 2 feet of water. The only other incidents that I heard of this week was a report that my brother-in-law spoke about, and he said that he had in Evesham at least golf ball size hailstones, and they damaged the roof of his new car, pebble dashed it, you know, or pebble dented it all over the roof and bonnet and boot. Now, I just got to say this, guys, we're seeing climate change shift, and we're seeing these extreme weather patterns, you know, before our very eyes. I've never seen water droplets the size as I did when I was down that coastal region last week, and I couldn't believe the amount of flooding it had caused. Now, literally, it was like a fireman's hose pipe had been turned on, and the water was gushing at an alarming rate, spraying out of the guttering and completely overwhelming the drains within the area, to the point where there was flooding at least 6 inches on the car park. We'd only ran from the door of the shopping centre to the car, and we was soaked through completely. Like I say, the water droplets that were falling were noticeably bigger than normal, and I guess that is what put down so much water in such a short space of time that had caused the flooding. Now, several shops down in Somerset were flooded. My wife, a couple of days later, had noted that the electric was out in a few of the shops, because it had obviously, you know, knocked the electric out, and they was pumping out some of the shops, and they got in some of the shops dehumidifiers trying to dry it out a bit. But, you know, we're seeing these changes, guys, and it's very close to the report stating, I'm talking about the Livingston and Penn one, where it states that the sunspots will cease to form on the sun in and around 2015, and we're less than 6 months away now to 2015. And we know what will be the result of the sunspots disappearing after that point. It will be, you know, as we experienced back in the 1650s during the last mini ice age that took place for around 40-50 years. And it's very alarming, guys, because we've all seen the graphs. You've seen me show the graphs of these things, and we can see that the gradient of that line is definitely heading towards zero. There are a few people that disagree with the fact that we will be going into another ice age should those sunspots cease to start forming on the sun's surface. And like I said, according to the Livingston and Penn's report, it states that they will fail to form due to the lack of magnetic gauze that favours sunspots forming. And also, as a result of them failing, there is their increase in heat on the sun's surface, so it's working against the ability for sunspots to form because of the increase in heat on the sun's surface. You've just got to, give that some thought. I would love to tell people to take this more serious than what they have, and I understand it's very difficult to do that, but the data that we've gathered from more than one source now is, or should be, enough to make you make some decisions that are very difficult to make. Now, I just want to come to the point is, what I'm worried about is that I'm concerned that a lot of people have got too much tied up in the properties as far as their wealth is concerned. Okay, and if I could give them a heads up of something that was to come, perhaps they could transfer that wealth out of that property into something that would give them a better chance to survive what is going to come. This is happening on a continent scale. The crisis will be on continent scales. It won't just be in cities, because cities are artificial dwelling spots for human beings. They heavily rely on imported food into the cities from. Now, can you imagine if we start going into ice age scenarios where we get more than one crop failure of certain things, and they start to affect the staples, the foods that we consume on a large scale. I just wonder how these cities are going to sustain themselves, because they're not sustainable in their own right without the import of food and energy into cities. They are artificial dwelling spaces, and they're going to be hit first. And the thing is here, guys, it expands to continents. As I said, countries are going to be hit, and they're already starting to be hit, as we see in Europe. Financially, they're getting into a lot of trouble because they've had crop failures already. They've also had shortages of energy, and it is the energy in a city that is the decider on the amount of energy that goes into a city in the form of electricity and gas. Is really the critical thing to whether that is a developing city or country or a failing one. Now, I suppose it ties into the Ukraine. They have recently had their gas shut off, and there are large steel factories in the Ukraine now. How those places are coping right now with regards to their exports or their manufacturing facilities is something that is not being very clearly outlined by the mainstream media. But what is being outlined by the mainstream media is a lot of propaganda right now, and this article that we're looking at here is one of those things. It talks of 20 to 25,000 to 40,000 Russian troops building on the Ukraine border, and I don't blame Russia for doing that in a way, especially when we look at an article such as this, and we can see that NATO is moving all the more closer to Russian border. And there's been some provocations over the last few weeks with 16 Russian nuclear bombers coming within the territory and having to be chased off by American fighter jets to America. And there is claims that they are actually testing now the defence system in place with regards to these aircraft coming in. The other thing is it's not just happening from Russia's side, and it isn't just Russia probably mounting troops up on the Russian border, even though they deny that. I don't know whether it's true or not, and I don't know whether Putin, as I've said before in other videos, is on the same team as Obama and David Cameron and the rest of NATO, and that this new global BRICS bank is just been announced recently on the back of MH17 and the Israel-Gaza battles. Then we've had the ISIS murders that are taking place, and today Barack Obama stating that he's going to go in there and strike them, and it's going to go on for months until he's heavily hit ISIS. But we've also had reports that all that they've managed to do at the moment is hit an abandoned possible Scud missile unit, and it's a single unit, and that's all they've managed to do up until this point. But on that as well, we've had US submarines, I believe Sierra class, I'm not sure, but it was a submarine, an American submarine, nuclear powered one, that was, I believe, carrying Trident missiles, or it could have been Tomahawk missiles, I don't know. Like I say, I don't know the specific submarine, I just remember reading about the article that was chased out of Russian waters. And I said to you guys, this starts because they are just children. These are child mentalities that we're seeing now. And I said it would be no different to watching two kids push and shove each other. First of all, it starts with a bit of name calling, then there's the pushing and shoving with the sanctions and the false flag, and I'm talking about MH17 going down in a vicinity very close to Russian border. And now we're starting to hear that they are using nuclear planes, as the tit for tat methods, and nuclear submarines. And like watching two children in the playground, it won't be long now, I believe, before one of them does something, and at that point you will know what that will mean. When one of them does do something, you will know we will be in the Third World War, and it is built up right now over the Ukraine. On the one side we've got NATO that are planning joint drills with the Ukraine, and their intentions are to push back these rebels that are in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. But we also know there are very likely Russian special forces on the ground in the East Ukraine that may, through that porous border, be supplying some form of weapons to those Russians in the Ukraine. And why wouldn't they? These are Russian people. This president that is running the Ukraine at the moment has sworn to kill anyone that opposes the Ukrainian government, and we've seen his forces do such in the streets. We've seen innocent civilians, and I mean, I cannot believe, to the point of where I have seen, guys, I couldn't believe it, a young mother clutching her baby and both dead in a park. That's the mentality. Apparently something mortar had gone off in the vicinity of them and killed them. This, what you're watching here in this little picture with this president, having a go at this sniper's rifle, is something you'll never see in a real battle, because you know, they're just plain soldiers. I mean, look at the rifle that he's got there. No, I don't believe many of the forces within the Ukraine would have such a rifle. He's obviously got the money and the means to get a rifle to have a photo took in such a situation. You would never see him on a frontline situation where his life would be at risk. And that is the same for any other world leader. They send other people to do the killing and also to die for their behalf. And the only thing I see these wars actually achieving is resources, and I'm talking about the resources of oil and, you know, lucrative oil contracts. That's all I ever see. It's not defence, you know. And who gives America? And I'm not talking about American people, I'm talking about their government, which they should do something about it. And at the same time, guys, the UK people, the British, should do something about the, you know, the government of which we've got, because they are no longer serving the public. They're serving themselves, and that is not their job title. They are supposed to be public servants, and it's same for in America. Those that are running America are public services, you know, servants. They are what you pay your taxes for, and if they're not doing the job as they should be, there should be some means in place to remove them, and at the moment there isn't. And if we try to do something at the moment, we'll be classed as terrorists. So you know it as well as I know it, and if you're in the United States or anywhere in there, you know yourself, you are not going to be the first person to cross that line and take matters into your own hands because of what you have to lose at that point. But I'm telling you now, this is what needs to happen, but I know it won't, and I can understand why those people will not do it, because as soon as they take that step across the line, they can no longer return to their pit, to their family's home, because there will be someone there ready to arrest them for doing so. They will be accused of being terrorists, you know, or separatists, or any of these new names that these elites have chosen to accuse us with, you know, and do something about us. It should be done, if it's going to be done, by a multitude of people, by a nation of people that knows wrong from right, and they should know that by leaving these governments in place right now is the total, complete wrong thing to do. They need to be removed. These are murderers by the push of a pen, not warriors. Like I say, they never send themselves in, they never send their close friends in, they never send their own family in. They send in everybody else to do their dirty work. And like I say, are you fighting these days, if you're in the forces, for your people back at home, or are you fighting for lucrative contracts? I remember, just changing the subject slightly, when I was studying back in 2000 at the university, reading. I will look through the books, because I've kept all my university books. I will look through them books to find the section that stated back then that by 2015, yes, there will be hardly any oil left with regards to oil reserves. Now, we've heard the opposite to that there is plenty of oil reserves. There is enough for another 100, 200 years. But I don't think that's the real case. I really don't. And I think that's why we're seeing the wars that we have seen over the last 15 to 20 years in Iraq, in Iran, in Libya. It's all countries that have resources that other countries, other Western countries, you know, European countries and NATO countries need. And what we're seeing at the same time is Russia and China, you know, building advanced drilling equipment, which they shouldn't be doing, in the Arctic region, which is one of the most pristine regions on this planet, and they're drilling it. And the problem is here is that it's a seasonal place which, you know, gets ice coverage, and if there's a problem there with a leak like what we've seen with BP recently, it will be very difficult to cap because of the ice. They will have to wait till seasons, and by that time they could have, you know, the amount of oil that could have leaked out there could have well ruined the rest of the remaining ecology in the sea. Putting this on top of the Fukushima reactor pumping out, you know, radioactive waste, you know, the BPR spill, what that did to the thermocline in the region, how it's affected the ecology, and, you know, you could just compile this, guys, just like, you know, the financial markets with, you know, the printing up of money, creating austerity and hyperinflating money, so that we actually, you know, now only have the spending power of half of what we did a few years ago. It's absolutely disgraceful, you know, across all ranges. And you know, you heard me in one of the last videos I did before I went away a week ago say that I could not believe the state in which the world is in right now. And I don't just mean that with regards to human input, I mean that with regards to nature and climate change, and also what is taking place right now in our solar system. You know, I'm shocked, I'm deeply shocked to see human beings murdering in the way in which they are. But, you know, one of the articles I read in the newspaper, because I didn't take any form of electronics with me on holiday, I said I wasn't going to do that, but I couldn't resist buying a newspaper, and I did see an article in the Sun over the last week. You know, inside there was like a little pull-out section, and it was all about the Second World War, and there was firing squads even back then, just like what we're seeing ISIS do now. So in 100 years, you know, nothing's really changed with the way we treat people that are doing their job for, yes, okay, it might be the enemy, but, you know, with regards to the fact we will put them before a firing squad and shoot them, there is no difference in my book. It is murder, and I think it is unnecessary. Regardless, I don't think anybody should be, you know, executed in any manner or such as that. You know, it never is okay. It eliminates the problem very quickly, and so does these wars eliminate the problem, but it shows the lack of logical reasoning and working out of problems between two nations that have a problem. It shows that they're very much immature, and that they can't settle their problems other than, you know, eradicating the problem. It's like they give you a choice. You either see it the way we see it and go with it, or we wipe you out. Could you ever see an intelligent race from another world, you know, acting like that has perhaps at some point in its history may have started out down this line? But my God, you know, humans have not ceased to stop this behaviour. You know, I couldn't believe it when I went to Bosworth battlefield, where King Richard was defeated by King Henry in the UK. You know, I just looked on the wall there, and if you've ever been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. They've got every war the UK has been involved in that goes back, you know, 200, 300, 400 years, even more than that, probably over 2,000 years, and there was war after war after war after war after war. My God, like I say, humans have never stopped spilling each other's blood you know, a pack of lions wouldn't do that to each other. They wouldn't kill each other. They would kill a wildebeest, or, you know, a buffalo for themselves to sustain a living, but you wouldn't see them killing each other like we do. I believe we're the only species on the planet that do that. You know, and haven't we done a great job over the years of building up, you know, weapons and machinery to do that to this point in time right now. It's just a mess is what I see. It's just a mess, and it's getting worse, and I believe this is a provocation and a precursor to a third world war. And, you know, the economy is collapsing. And I said this, there is people that are so corrupt, they are stealing the loot, and they want to give you some amnesia in the form of a third world war. And my fear is that there isn't enough people that survived the Second World War to, you know, install the, you know, understanding of what it is they are actually, you know, foolishly pushing for. Because these people seen what a world war is like. They've seen invasions, they've seen devastation, they've seen bombs drop, you know, in the Second World War. My nan, who has recently passed, you know, God bless her soul, I remember what she told me. You know, she used to say to me, I won't mention the lake, but she used to say, if ever they dredge that lake, they're going to find a load of babies. Because what some of the women were doing back then, where they couldn't survive, or they didn't, you know, they couldn't feed another baby during that Second World War. That's how bad things got. They were drowning newborn babies in this lake. She says if ever they drain or dredge that lake, they'll find, you know, a hell of a lot of newborn babies. This is what people had to do in order to survive. She also said that, you know, she was meant to go back to her friend's bomb shelter, but she said no, but I've got to go back home because Mum and Dad were expecting me. A friend, if she'd have gone back, would have took a direct hit on that bomb shelter. She did. A friend did die with a direct hit, and if my nan had gone back then, she would have been dead. But she did tell me what she saw that day, and that was a baby's arm that had been blown off, and it was on the windowsill of a house that all the windows had gone through as well. So these are sorts of things that I fear that younger generations won't understand. And, you know, when they see what's going on, you know, with the desensitisation of the news, they won't fear it enough not to, or to do everything within their power to stop it happening. I don't believe that these young people are motivated enough, because they haven't experienced it as those very few people that went through it. Oh, I hope it never escalates to that, but what we are seeing is an escalation to that, guys. And we're also seeing, and I believe if you put something in, you know, and, you know, if you do something, you're going to get a reaction for that, whatever you've done. And I have been trying to say to you guys, you know, I do believe that our actions are, you know, reflected through nature. You know, our conduct on this planet should be a lot better. We should be better stewards of this planet. You know, we are, after all, the ones that claim to have intelligence, but it is a crying shame to see humanity going through such a period of time where it could quite possibly devastate everything on this planet if, you know, they do not resolve this in other ways. There is already enough taking place with climate change. I believe that is a rebound for our behaviour. I really do. I think the planet is shrugging us, trying to shrug us off. I think the planet, and I've got to say this, would be a better place without human beings on it whatsoever. Because we failed as stewards to take care of it. We have just raped the resources to the point where we have almost consumed all of the resources on this planet. And we don't seem to stop, even having the foresight that these are going to run out. No, we go ahead and have more. We're writing checks we can't afford to cash. Yeah. And that's my views on these things, guys, that is taking place. I think we're in dark days, and it's not improving across the range with any of this. The climate's not improving. We are set on this gradient with regards to sunspots to enter a 0 point. There has been no upturn or deviation from that gradient. It is persistently on its path and has been so for the last at least 3 solar cycles, which has been 36 years. If you haven't noticed the changes already with the climate, then you need to get out a little bit more. Because one of the things I've noticed is that even if you have a great day, and the sun's been shining, it's been blue skies, the heat is no longer there on the evening as it used to be. It's sort of like as soon as the sun's hit the horizon and gone beyond it, the heat has been turned off from that point. So there you go, guys. I wish there was something positive to share with you guys, but I'm afraid across the range the economy is failing. We are seeing more wars and prolonged wars, and we're seeing our involvement not help any situation out. And across all these ranges, including nature and climate and all that, it's all getting worse, and I really wish it wasn't the case. The other thing is, guys, and this is a little bit off the cuff, I've been noticing recently a lot more than what I usually do, and I did mention this, that number 144. I also mentioned it in the Bible, that it's mentioned a few times in the Bible, the 144,000 saved people from the 12 tribes of Israel. And I also mentioned that with the descending bride in Revelations, that it was part of the perimeter wall measured in cubits. There was 144 cubits. I think it has a relevance. I really do. It's I'm not seeing it in the same place. I'm seeing it sporadically, but it really grabs my attention now. Now, some of the times might be that I'm actively looking for that number, so when I see it, my peripheral vision's going to pick up on seeing that straight away. But it's not all the cases, guys. It can't be all the cases, because I'm just seeing it, more frequently now. I think it has a meaning. I think we're close to a point in time where I will probably understand what that meaning was. And I've shared something with you guys before. I've actually seen something, and I was lucky enough to be with my father when we both stood there and seen something. Now, whether this numbering that we're seeing, the 144, has anything to do with that, remember I was telling you it was a sphere that was about 1.5 meters in diameter, like a big ball. It was pearl shaped in colour. It was about 20 feet away, about 15 foot or 20 foot off the floor, moving at about 15 miles an hour, not very fast. It came from round the back of the tree, so it was able to control its altitude, speed and direction, and then raised itself up above the roof of the house and flew off. I think I've got to say this. I think you've got to be a privileged person to witness something firsthand like that, and to witness it with someone else, so that you don't doubt what you saw. I've told you this, guys. It is nothing of this earth, because there is no physical signs of propulsion. It was just, as I say, it was a pearl-shaped ball. That's what I saw, and I think it might have something to do with this reoccurring numbering. You know, the 144. I feel it might. And if I remember correctly, it does mention one of 7 pearls on every other gate, or so, to do with the 12 gates. And we know that there are 3 gates in the north, 3 gates in the west, 3 gates in the south, you know, making up the 12 gates. Each gate has the angel's name on it, which is also the same name of the tribe of Israel that is saved. Each tribe has 12,000. There is 12 12s, which makes up the 144. This object that descends from the heaven at this point in time has an equal length, breadth and height. So that could be, in my view, a cube-shaped object. It could be also a spherical shaped object. I'm not 100% sure on that, but these are the things. I'm just being open with you guys. I understand science. I've studied science, and I also know that, well, my personal feeling is it would be foolish to overlook some spirituality aspects, and I believe that there were some things also added to the Bible, or if you want to call them ancient scripts. There was things that needed to be put in there, and even if they was put in there by humans, what's to say that the humans wasn't influenced to write them in there? When you look at the 10 Commandments, you've got to say to yourself that if somebody was to look at our law system today and the 1,000 laws that are meant to be followed and not broken, then if someone came along, very intelligent person, and said, look, I've got a better way of handling this for you, just stick to 10 things, the 10 Commandments is what I'm talking about, just do that and you won't have any problem. I think you would agree that if people did do those 10 Commandments, there wouldn't be any of this, what we're seeing right now with regards to this murdering and killing and absolute atrocities to other human beings. But like I say, I wanted to share that with you. I felt I needed to share that with you. Let's just say that I do feel there is something about that number, and the fact that I keep seeing it, and I think the fact I keep seeing it more often is because we are getting close to something. If you don't have these experiences yourselves, then I can completely understand. You might not feel the urge to take precautions, but you might not have an opportunity if all this does go the way I believe it will go. I've got to say that, guys. I'm not fear-mongering here. I'm just being honest with you. I feel it is coming to that. We've identified some facts that state it will be like, as we say. So it's a matter of as to how strong you feel about that. I will gain neither whether you prepare yourselves or you don't in any given situation, whether it arises or does not. Just feel I should at least continue to, talk about these things with people that might be listening and might take a bit of, this, with them, and they give it a bit of thought and look at the, and just try and do that, guys. Weigh it up logically, and if you know what it is when you're looking at it logically, then try and do the next thing, and that is act logically on that information. If you can do that, I think you'll be in a better position to face whatever it is. And don't expect it to come overnight. I'm not saying that it won't come overnight, but what I am saying to you is it is a big inertia, this planet. It's on a large scale, and usually things move slowly. But that doesn't mean to say that in a day, another situation like has happened in our supposed history where Atlantis sunk in one day. Imagine hearing that on the news, because in the last 10 years you have heard of something opposite to that. You've heard of 2 small continents rise out from the sea, or 2 small islands rise out from the sea floor, or the sea break the sea surface. That's a unusual event. But anyhow, guys, make of this what you want. I'll put the link, as always, guys, down below. If you want to support the channel, feel free. The link's there. And as always, guys, be prepared and be safe. And I'll say bye for now.